Hey, welcome to Eye on the Illini, folks. We're back after what turned out to be way too exciting of a second half. The Illini overcome a lot of turnovers, a lot of fouls, and a lot of free throw shots by Missouri. Ked, what were your initial thoughts after that second half?
Try to win the game. They let Northwestern slip away with a 10-point lead, Mike. Then they let the number one team in the country off the hook. My thought was learn and finish the game, no matter what it took, or how you did it, or what it looked like. Just get the win. That's what I was thinking about because to go 7-4, going into the holiday break, knowing the fact that you let two slip away, and I'm gonna tell you the SEC is running away with the country, and this was a big win for Illinois, but also the Big Ten.
Yeah, I thought this was really important as well. And I really thought that it was a great opportunity for the Illini to go ahead and really get a chance to change up the narrative a little bit because I don't know that you're going to get that was like playing on the road in the Big Ten with some of the calls we saw and with the intensity of Missouri, who were I tell you what, Coach Gates has really got them doing one thing that a lot of people, we talked about this at the half, they go to the basket and they keep attacking, assuming they're going to get the foul calls. And that's old school, but man, it kept them in this game.
It did. It's old school basketball. I get it. It was his advantage. I don't. They beat Kansas, so I don't want to sound stupid and say that they're not a good basketball team. I'm not that impressed with them. I thought Illinois let them off the hook. Will Riley makes some of his threes. The missed layup by KJ. Those are little things where a young team needs to learn how to win, and it's not going to change. You're not going to make a 18-year-old kid turn 22 in one season, but this was big on so many levels. It's the bragging rights game, but to not lose back-to-back games to an opponent going into the new year and also an SEC thing to me right now. I'm really big on the conferences because I think the way their conference is playing right now, they're rolling over. And what Purdue did yesterday was another embarrassment for the Big Ten. So that's why the Tennessee game was so big for Illinois, in my opinion, Mike.
Yeah, I think they're going to definitely they needed this win. And I think it was really important to do this for when you have the NCAA seeding and stuff like that later on in the year. When it went down there, how did you think they reacted to a pretty high pressure situation? Because I thought Kylan Boswell really stepped up during the end there, but I thought Ivisic stayed out of foul trouble, and I thought Trey White did a really nice job until that bizarro call at the end.
We can talk about the officiating a little bit. If you don't bring it up, I'm going to. Number one, but I'm going to answer your question. Colin is showing his maturity. That last play, when they not the last play, but a couple of plays under a minute to go in the game, Kylan was chewing somebody's butt out for a missed assignment. That's what you have to have. It's time to grow up now because in a couple of weeks, I don't consider them freshmen anymore. I consider them being young. They have to grow up. And I will tell you this: you and I have talked about this a number of times. I am just falling in love with Merez as a player. That guy just brings his lunch pail to work every single time. And he is going to produce for them. He's going to give them something no matter what it takes. He's just going to be that guy to go out there and to give them something. He had 8 rebounds in 19 minutes. I, as a matter of fact, he was tied for second on the team. Ibisic had 10, and Trey White he also had 8.
Yeah, don't miss Mr. Boswell at 6'1" or whatever he is, with 9 boards there. I thought that Merez played excellent. I'll be honest, 2 or 3 of his fouls I found to be challenging calls, but we all know that Illinois centers don't get much of the benefit of the doubt, at least not their freshman year. You got to get a year under. But I really think he is really a very valuable piece because he can guard fours and fives. And we talked about this at the half, but his ability to stay focused on the defensive end of the court is really good. And I think as he gets more and more confidence on the offensive end, he's not going to be a threat from the three. But I think on the offensive end, as he gains confidence, I think he will more and more cause defenses problems, and they can't dot him because he'll take it and dunk it down their throats if you don't play hard defense on him.
There was a play late in the second half, and I'm going to give kudos to people out there who were questioning or being an armchair quarterback. I'm going to give Coach Underwood his credit here. There was a play in the second half where they just went at it decent, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking if that was Morez, that shot would have been blocked. Coach subbed him out. Morez came in the game. They drew a play up Missouri drew a play up to get an easy basket, and Morez sent it back to him. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about from a coaching standpoint. Now, everybody that was negative about the lack of adjustments, if you didn't see it, go back and watch the game. Who was in the game? They had their offense, defense guys making assignments. It's easy to say that when they won. If they would have lost, I would have came to this podcast because I wrote down a couple times where I thought they knew that they were not going to get attacked because we knew what Missouri was going to do. So for all those people out there, Kedric included, were saying make adjustments and you don't want to give up easy baskets, they did that. They really made adjustments. That's why Morez was in the game at the end of the game because one, he's going to rebound, and you're not just going to score over him without him contesting the shot. I like that. And Dre Gibbs Lawhorn was at the end of the game. They were doing defense. Maybe they'll listen to the IlliniGuys podcast. Maybe they're on our message boards. Who knows? Whatever it is, I was really impressed with them, with the adjustments that they made. They did not let what happened at Northwestern cost them the game today.
Totally agree. I think that was big. And I will go back. Look, folks, for people who've heard this before, but the bottom line is between the SEC and the Big Ten, they receive over $2 billion with a B in revenue from the networks to broadcast their games. Predominantly, the majority of that money is for football, and then secondarily is basketball. You've got a ton of dollars that you can spend there. And I know that the universities they're claiming they're poor now because they'll have to pay that $20 million to the athletes next year. But look, you have enough money where you could actually hire referees to be full-time employees. You could keep them in shape all year round. You could do endless amounts of film work. You could do all sorts of things to improve in both football and basketball to support that one thing that makes you the money, which is the quality of the games. Today, the refereeing was a joke. I thought there were a lot of fouls on both teams that probably left them going, why is that a foul when you just didn't call somebody doing a Malachi crunch the time down the court before? And then when you look at the Gates thing, when he jumped out onto the court and Morez got thrown to the ground, that didn't even get a look at from the referees. And I'm telling you, these are 18 to 22-year-old men. We were lucky Morez didn't come back up throwing punches. That's just an emotional powder keg. It was very poorly handled. In fact, after that Gates did his little baby crying act, I don't even know what he was that mad about compared to what was going on at the time on the court. But after he did his little tears, Illinois Morez Johnson got 2 ticky-tack fouls called on him after he was thrown down. And these refs, they're incompetent. I'm sorry, Kev, but you and I, as old, out of shape guys, I could referee a game that it really is pathetic what we're doing. And first off, these guys should be paid more. They shouldn't have to be refereeing 6 nights a week and getting on planes and being exhausted and not getting good night's sleep. People say you're attacking the refs. I'm not attacking the refs. I'm saying they're being put in an impossibly bad position by the SEC and by the Big Ten. The little nickel and dime conferences, who cares what they do? But when you have the SEC and Big Ten, they've got the money to pay and help these guys be in the best position to support the product so that it's watchable. That was hard to watch today, Ked.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to be very critical. I tweeted, go back and look at the time, after Gates had that, he had a reason to complain. I really think there was a foul that should have been called on one of his players' layups. And then I think the next trip down the court was when Trey Wright got into it, Morez got into it. I think he had seen enough. I'm going to be critical. It's their job. So we can't lie and say they're 18-year-old kids and give everybody ribbons and roses. They were horrible today. They were horrible. As I don't know if people know this or not, but there was a Missouri fan thrown out of the game today. They were upset because of the officiating. And it's hard because I knew this is how much they let coaches and fans influence them. I tweeted the game was going to change, and what happened? It changed, Mike. Not because I'm somebody special. That's just how they work. A coach gets mad, coach gets a technical foul, and that's what happens. And you're right. Some of those calls were horrible. What I don't understand is it's hard for the players to officiate. And don't give me this BS about, oh, you do it. Because you can watch a game to know and understand what's a foul. I'm telling people right now, listening to this podcast, if you go to an Illinois basketball game or any game in college basketball, if a coach is going to yell foul right in front of the official, they're going to throw their hands up and call it. 6 times out of 10. I watch it at pro all the time, and it makes me sick to watch. I'm tired of watching that. It's either a foul or it's not. Don't let the coaches dictate that. Don't let the fans get mad and dictate that. If a team, it happened in Illinois today. Illinois was frustrated because they didn't get a bunch of fouls, and then they finally called one for Kylan Boswell, and the fans start cheering. I don't give a damn. If it's not a foul, it's not a foul. If it doesn't benefit, don't change the game to make somebody happy. As a player, your job is to protect the players, and then you listen to the coaches. After that, it doesn't matter because that last block Morez Johnson had was horrible. That's not a foul, but you know what? They anticipated that call. They thought it looked like a foul, and they didn't want Mr. Gates to yell again. So they didn't say anything. So they called a foul. That's tough for players. And it's tough for guys out there who are trying to guard the ball. Kylan Boswell was a great on-ball defender. You know what? And there's times where he's going to the basket. I'm thinking, okay, they're going to call it. They're not going to call it. That's what you talking about, $1 billion industry. They should, Mike. And for anybody who wants to challenge with this little segment that I'm saying to you, I've interviewed 2 guys that are officials. Steve Wilmer, who is one of the best officials ever officiated basketball games, and Ed Hightower. And I've interviewed both of them. You can go back and Google them. They have told me, yes, they listen to the coaches. They know what's at stake. They know what the records are. They're sports fans. So for people I'm not saying they're cheating, so don't put words in my mouth, but they get caught up in the games like everybody else, and they can't do that. That's what's frustrating. Seeing guys out there lose games and coaches lose their jobs because officials are incompetent.
And again, I go back to the fact that as a player, you want to know what a foul is so that you can adapt to playing that. And so there was a wild and woolly time, and then they tried to get control of the game, and then Dennis Gates had his little tearful act, and then it was just back and forth. I will say the one thing that we saw today that I thought was spectacular is the Illini only missed 1 out of 23 free throws. So they were 22 for 23. And if it wasn't for that last one, they'd have been 23 for 23. That if you want an illustration of how important free throws are to a game, if Illinois does their normal 75%, they lose this game today. And so that was critical. And then the other thing that again, I think that Gates does a great job of coaching is just run to the basket and throw something up. You'll get to shoot some free throws. And there's a difference because when Kasparis, as great as he is, a lot of times when he goes into the lane, he's going to try to avoid getting his shot blocked. So he's going to go down, up, backwards. And when you do that, the referee has a tendency not to call a foul for you. Whereas Gates's guys just run into you like they did Morez with the blind faith that the referee is going to blow the whistle. And they got a ton of calls today. And I think that though the Illini putting those free throws down was spectacular. And for people out there, that those free throws, they're free. They're not as easy as you might think they are. And to come through at that level, I thought was good. And I think this team, they had the 10-point lead. They almost lost the game. They came out with the victory. Do you think this gives them any more confidence going down the stretch of a game?
I don't know, because this team is young, Mike, and who knows? Because they may learn from it. How many times have I said learn from their mistake? I need a holiday Christmas gift. I want somebody to help me mentally grow some hair back on my head and help me with this question I'm going to ask. As great as KJ is, and he is an awesome player, and his turnovers just drive one crazy. But then that three he hit, then that spin move to hit the shot, he is so good and he's crafty. But then he turns the ball over, and it's just so frustrating. I don't know how that coaching staff still sits there and not just stress out because he is a tough player to figure out. Because to be 18 years old, to make the plays that he makes, to make the shots that he makes, and but he's so careless at times, and then you get frustrated. But that's the one kid I really want to see grow up because it's hard not to root for him. When he missed that layup today, I felt bad for him because he had made great plays against Northwestern and Tennessee. I know we're talking about Missouri. Those kind of plays came back to haunt you. So, Mike, if they did they learn anything, who knows? I guess we're gonna see. We're gonna learn from that. You're right. The free throws were great. That's why they won the game. You don't
Yeah.
miss those free throws, you lose that game.
Yeah. And I do think that to me, sometimes you have to psychologically pump up your kids. And so I'm going to make a big deal about, hey, you came from behind, you won this game, you didn't lose it. And maybe they just got lucky, who knows? But this is a feather they can put in their cap because they didn't walk away with an L. And there was a lot of things going against them tonight that there were people would, or this afternoon, that people would have said, oh, they lost. Yeah. And they found a way to get the game won, which I think that is really important for their confidence. Now, I was looking at the plus minus because I've been told that plus minus is really important. And so plus minus, Morez Johnson was the highest for the team with a plus 10. And then it went down to, unfortunately, Dre Gibbs Lawhorn was minus 11 and Ben Humrickhouse was minus 6. So you ended up with everybody else being between 0 and 6, except for Morez and then Ben and Dre. I'm like you. I think that is a statistic that is helpful when you look at it within the network of other statistics, because let's face it, my plus minus would look pretty good if I was out on the court with Michael Jordan. Now, if Michael Jordan might say that his plus minus gets hurt when he's out on the court with me. Who you're out there with makes a difference. But I will say Boswell, and I've said this before on podcasts, but I was absolutely wrong about him. I was not excited. I was not excited with him when he signed. I thought that he wasn't what Illinois needed. And I'll tell you, you brought up his leadership that he used down the stretch to get on people. And as we look at what he did, he had a pretty good game when you think of 16 points. Now, his field goals was only 2 for 12, so there's areas to improve, but 11 for 12 at the free throw line, 9 rebounds, including 4 offensive rebounds, when most of the time he was the shortest guy on the court, 5 assists, and he had a steal. He had 2 turnovers. I'm telling you, Ked, I was wrong about Boswell.
Mike, it's not, you know what? You and I both were, I don't want to say not thrilled, but we were just concerned about how he would adjust to Illinois. He's done fine. You're right. His field goal percentage and it's not been great. It's not just today's game, but it also, let's keep in mind, he had 5 assists to go along with that. So I have to give him credit for that. In all honesty, he has his leadership is starting to take over, which I really like about him. He has a little toughness to him. He does. And I was really glad to see him chew one of his teammates out. Not that it's about manning up and just being mean. It's just, hey, we've been here before and we've learned. We have to learn from this. So I think if I were, again, I'm going to give the coaches credit, and I'm going to. They deserve credit. But if I had one, I'm going to give them an A minus. If I had to see one thing, and I hope this trend changes after today, they need to run more. This half-court offense, I'm not a fan of. Illinois basketball, they have ran and pushed the ball down people's throat. They don't do that anymore. I used to love seeing Brother get up and push his hand and push the ball up the court. As good as KJ is, I think it would eliminate some of his turnovers, and you would get easy transition baskets. It's not about Terrence Shannon. He's not coming back. Okay, he's in the NBA. His career's over. But Illinois ran before he got there. And I like to see them do that a lot more. I also think if you do that, you're going to get a decent some more opportunities. Now you talk about we were critical of fouls. There's one guy I thought who got hosed a lot because he was shooting the ball really well. Now he's good. He's better than what people give him credit for. Is he great? No, but he's good enough to rebounds well enough. I just wish they would get up and push the ball up the floor a lot more. This team has the athletes to do that. I think you get Will Riley going. I think you get Ben Rickhouse going. You get Trey White. That's his game. Don't settle for just walking the ball up the court. That's not Illinois basketball. So that was one negative I'm going to say is that. But kudos, like I said at the start of this broadcast, for making the necessary changes to put, in my opinion, the subs that they made at the time, I would have done the same thing. I have no smoke with that and no comments about it.
Yeah, and I do think one of the things that I think would be good is when you get into the open court. First off, a defense doesn't have time to set up for you. You walk the ball up. Slow guys like me can get prepared to play defense. If you don't walk the ball up, now all of a sudden that means you're in a situation where guys have to find their who they're guarding. They have to look at who's penetrating, and it puts a lot more pressure to maintain your spacing on the floor when you're running. But when you notice, there's a few guys who really benefit. Trey White obviously gets up and down the court pretty quick. Kylan Boswell, Morez. But the other guy I think that you really unlock is Will Riley, because you put him in an open court in a flowing game, he's probably going to find 2 or 3 shots that he doesn't find in a half court, and he's going to make those. And I would like to see him have a few more easy shots because, again, if you get in a few easy shots and you make those and you start to get your confidence, when you get that open three, you don't think about it, you just shoot, and that's what they need to be. And so I think your talk of trying to do a little bit, I'm not saying turn them into the Showtime Lakers, but I am saying when you get the opportunity, bust that ball down the court, and you'd be shocked how many open shots you get.
Not my great analogy. Not only that, they get a layup out of it. Will Riley's good going to the basket. And Ben, I'm going to use Ben Rickhouse and Will Riley both. They're both great free throw shooters. Get a couple of baskets for them. Push the ball down the floor. Illinois was able to get the ball on the floor. And, I mean, I felt bad for Will Riley. He had so many open looks that didn't fall for him. And maybe he turned those threes into a couple layups. It's okay to get a couple R2s if you're on offense. I'm totally okay with that. And then, like we said, it changes the whole outlook of the game. It really truly does. You know what? I'll use Draymond Gibbs Longhorn. He had not knocked down a couple threes. He made a big jump shot. And then he had a nice putback. He had a nice spin move in the basket in front of the free throw line. So his confidence level changed. He knew he was going to make that shot. So I know that they know this and it's going to happen. And I'm not going to sit and overanalyze anything because every team has flaws. This team is tough to watch because they should be 10-1 or whatever the case may be. I just think the Northwestern loss, I know you guys are sick of hearing it, and Tennessee, those were games that Illinois had. But you learn from them. If they're going to learn from them and this doesn't happen again, then you take it. But at the end of the day, I really think when you look at the officiating again, I want to say this one last time: the officiating was bad. I thought Missouri fans are going to get mad. I thought they were dirty today. I thought the play, I don't know who it was, he could have stepped to the right of KJ. He didn't do that. You shoved
Well,
Morez, and they didn't get it, and Micah didn't even look at it.
oh, and Cruz was bad too. You look at that guy. If you watch him, like got called for that. He got Trey White in the wrap up when they were both going for the ball. I couldn't tell who fouled whom or if you even call that. But if you watch him off the ball, if any of you recorded it, watch him off the ball. There's a couple times when Illinois guys were up in the air, he would hit people, and it never got called because he's always on the weak side. And as well as I do, Ked, when somebody goes up in the air, if you put a good hip into them at the right time, you can drop them on their head. And I thought there was a lot of borderline dirty play on stuff like that. That, again, as a guy who was a borderline dirty player, because Pete Rose was my idol, I know it when I see it. And you just don't see that type of play very much in ball today. And I think the sport is better for not having guys like me out there trying to push around the guys with more talent. And I really thought that got a little dangerous.
I thought Gates really challenged his team. There's a difference when you challenge a team and throwing your fists up and saying get after it. I thought they were borderline dirty today. I've not seen that from the Missouri team. I know he didn't want to lose to Illinois. I know he was embarrassed last year, and that's okay. But I was not a fan of that, and I think the officials should have. I think they should have took a look at it. And how in the world? I know what they're going to say to me, so I'm going to explain this part. You don't look at the Morez foul. They're going to say, okay, the technical foul took place first. It was almost simultaneously. You saw it.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't on a play like that. It doesn't matter, Ted.
But
they
that's
can
what
go
they're
to the
going to say
video.
why they didn't look at it, Mike. And they should.
Yeah.
And to Philip, you're 100% right. Here's why he should have been ejected. He came out on the court. There's some technical fouls, but when you do, that's why I said to you, if the official who was doing his or her job, he would have been out. But they didn't. But they let him stay on the court because maybe the situation of the game or didn't want to hear him complain. And I'll tell you what. Sometimes I miss the old Brad Underwood. He has. I don't know the last time he's got a technical foul. I think the last time I remember was the Ohio State game. I think he was thrown out of. But I would like to see him do it. I actually like to see Shauna Green get after a little bit because my guy Brett Bielema, he lets him have it. He lets him know what he's thinking. They don't need to be a crybaby. I'm not saying that. But when your team is getting holes like that, like Morez, those officials would have heard that. They would have known. And I think Coach Underwood is being nice because some of our fans are being critical because he's yelling. I don't give a damn. Other coaches are doing it. You fight for your team, and I know how competitive he is. I'm cool with that. I'm just sick of those other coaches. Like I said, Gates complained, and the game changed to his favor.
Yeah. And now here's an interesting side note here from Matt Stevens, our intrepid reporter, said that after the game, Kylan Boswell was talking about what the bragging right game means to him. And he said, and I quote from Matt's report, it's an unbelievable experience growing up in Champaign and being an Illini fan. So maybe that helped him in expressing himself and trying to lead those guys because he knew how big a deal this is and he could help impart that. And so even though Illinois doesn't have a lot of experienced players with the word Illinois on their jersey, a guy like Boswell can bring some of that experience because he grew up here and knows what some of these games mean.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the colleges paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Mike, like I said to you, you saw down the end. I'm going to go back and watch the game. Got to do some holiday shopping here, but I'm going to tell you, he chewed on someone, and it wasn't a mean thing, but that leadership, like I said, for the second or third time, you're going to need something like that. And I'm glad to see him compete. He seems much happier. He's a better player. He's not shooting the ball great right now. Hopefully that gets turned around, but he's a huge difference maker on this team, and it's good. Thank you, Matt, for reporting that to us because some of these guys, they don't know what it means. And if you really think about it, only one guy on this floor experienced that last year, and that was Ben Rickhouse.
Now, did you say this, Ked? Because
yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I'm not going to sit and lie about it. Ked doesn't lie. I'll tell you the truth. I said that, and you know what? In all honesty, I feel bad because I still say it's not going to happen. But the reason I said it, I saw what kind of player he was coming in. I didn't think Illinois was just going to have Ben be just a three-point shooter. Whoever this person is that sent that over, smack over rules, Nate, you send me a tweet, and I'm going to send you the videos that I sent our staff today about Ben Rickhouse. And then you understand why he would have been the leading scorer. He is just a three-point shooter, so he's being – I'm not saying – I better clarify that. That's what he does for Illinois. When he came in, he was a good pick-and-roll guy. He could get to the basket. He could tip dunks, which you saw against Tennessee. He did things like that before. That's not his role at Illinois. If I would have knew what his role was going to be at Illinois, I wouldn't have said that. So I have to own it. You're exactly right. I did say that.
Well, I'll smacko rules over Nate, so he's correct, and Ked owns it. And I'll say something. One of the things that again, is when anytime you're looking at stuff, we're not complaining about this, But somebody had a note here about where we're number 37 in offense, number 11 in defense, which is fantastic. And as you go on, though, I tend to look at things a little bit. I got to look at things a little differently. I love those rankings, but how I look at the game of basketball is how you get guys to make a difference out there. And I would like to see, and this is just plain old stuff, but I would just like to see a little more where we get guys in positions where they can get their shot a little easier. I think that's a huge thing. And then the other thing is Brad and I argued differently over Rickhouse versus Morez. And my point is that each of those rebounds that Morez gets either stops the other team's possession or gives Illinois another possession, depending on how you want to look offensive, defensive rebounds. And having Morez out there today, I don't like this game if Morez only has 2 rebounds and, that now all of a sudden maybe Illinois loses because you give Missouri another 6 possessions. That's what I was illustrating with that. And so to me, the the other question that comes up a lot is people will, so Ked, you got somebody who respects, and Ked is always honest. That's one thing you don't have to ever worry about with Ked, by the way. But one of the things I just think that this team, they have to have that opportunity to make a difference. And so sometimes I'll look at the stats and I'll say, hey, this team is progressing great. Defensively, they are amazing. I didn't see that coming at all. But you look at some stats and you say, let's see what we can do. And so like Morez getting extra rebounds is huge. And especially a couple of those putbacks that he put right back in, that kind of wins. That's how you win games. And what I would like to do, I'll build on what Ked is talking about. I go on WJBC every Thursday evening at 5:30, and I talk with Blake Haas, who is the ISU play-by-play guy. And he was talking about how dominant Rickhouse was and all the things that he did against ISU last year. And everybody there was like, my gosh, he should be playing in the Big Ten. And he goes, but all those different things he did, he goes, we only get to see him shoot threes from the corner. He goes, he was backing people down. He was doing all sorts of stuff. And he goes, we haven't seen any of that yet. So I'm hoping that Ben gets the opportunity to do that. And I do think if you can get up and down the court, to Ked's point, if you get up and down a little bit on the court, that lets you get guys in positions where they can build their confidence with easier shots. Now, the last thing is people talk about playing against the zone. And I'm telling you right now, if you go into AAU ball or high school ball, the vast majority of teams, due to the way you don't have as much practice time as you used to, you pretty much only play one defense. And most people pick man-to-man because you can more easily keep track of guys and whose responsibility it is. And you can also go out on the 3 a little easier and guard it. I think the zone defense now versus the old days, people aren't used to seeing it as much. And it does really sometimes freak out teams because they just don't practice against it. Ked, you got any thoughts on sometimes how the zone defense, which I've seen more than just Illinois, get crossed up by a good zone?
Mike, I'm glad. Thank you for letting me respond. 2 things. This is one time, and I'm begging you, you should get on our message board and go look at the discussions from my colleague Bragg Sturdy and I about plus and minuses and other fans. At IlliniGuys, we have this thing called a game room, and fans were in it today because it's been a week-long discussion about plus and minuses. Kedric Prince is not a fan of it. Use it, look at it, do whatever you want to do with it. I don't care. I'm okay. I love stats. I'm a stat guy. I like the missed field goals, turnovers, all that. Plus and minuses to Kedric is a joke because I know how effective Morez Johnson was on that floor today. I know how effective Ben Rickhouse or Will Riley or Kylan Boswell. I can see the eye test. You don't need to give me some plus and minuses because the players out there on a 5-0 run and they're going to benefit from that. I don't care about that. Okay, I don't. And so, but it's a great topic of discussion. Mike, you brought it up at the beginning of this question, so I'm telling you, it's worth to get on the board, our message board, to read it because I think it's really good to read. Second, I'm going to talk about the zone. every time Ibisevic went out of the game, Missouri went to his zone. That tells you how much they respect him as a shooter because they did it every single time. I think there was one time late in the second half where he was out and they stayed in it because I noticed it right away. And they made it tough, and it was like a 3-2 or 1-2-2 drop back into a flat 3-2. And teams are doing that to try to take the pick and roll and take the ball out of KJ's hands, which is good coaching. I'm cool with that. But the respect that they have for Ibisevic, because he did knock down a three, and I want to see him get back to that. And he also didn't just settle. He was able to try. He tried to go to the block. So to me, you don't see a lot of zones anymore because I think the offensive strategies are so good. I mean, when teams are going to get easy shots off zone. And I know we're talking men's basketball here, and I'll just make this last statement. If you watch the Illinois women's basketball game, I'm telling you, Shauna Green, zoning her is stupid. She has some great sets off of a zone. She punishes teams who zone her. That's why you don't see a lot of it.
And we got Brad Sturdy, who was live down in St. Louis, got an up-close and personal view of the amazing referee work that was out there today. Brad, what were your general impressions coming away from Illinois finding a way to win a game and not have it get flushed down the toilet in the last 5 minutes, despite being under extreme duress from at least 5 guys and sometimes as many as 8?
It's crazy. That was just such I hate to say this, that was just, it was a very competitive game. Also, just a horrendous game with no flow. Just 43 total fouls, 24 in Illinois, 19 on Missouri. It was just physical. It was rough. It was just, which is fine. But the weird part is you really didn't. It was hard for players. I feel bad for the players in this game because they didn't know what was a foul, what wasn't a foul. One time you go straight up, it's not a foul. Next time you go straight up, and it is a foul. But it's gotten to the point where guys just go and throw themselves into the defense and just throw their body in there, and you get a foul call. And then I thought the guy who was the biggest victim today of that was Merez Johnson. He had 5 fouls, 3 of them totally. The last one, his 5th foul, was just as clean a block as you can possibly have. And the guy, he hits all ball, and then the guy just flies into him, and it's a foul. And it's really odd. So it's a hard game to watch, but I will say this: both teams played their butts off. You got to give them credit for the way they competed, way they went after things. And then even the foul, I thought the Merez block, and then the other one egregious thing I saw was the Trey White foul and the rebound at the end. It was really just an odd call with the way that you have let guys play the entire game. And so I thought that was strange. But anyway, hey, it's a great win. Illinois did what they do. I thought they did a good job on the defensive end again of doing a good job walling up. It's a tough matchup the way they play, where they like Brad Underwood likes to say, they head ram it, go downhill, and that's what they did. And so but I thought offensively they've got to shoot the ball better. They got to get some guys, whether it's Riley or Humrickhouse or Ivasic, as Ked mentioned a minute ago. Somebody's got to start making shots from the perimeter besides KJ off the bounce, because right now that's what they have going.
Yeah, we talked about Brad liking. We'd love to see him get. They're not going to be the Showtime Lakers, but we'd like to see him get a few more baskets in transition. When you have guys like Will Riley and you have guys like Kylan Boswell and the rest of the dudes who are pretty fast on this team, Trey White, is that something that they could look at to get a little bit more offense and maybe catch some teams before they get set up on D?
I don't think they're very fast. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Riley and KJ are very fast. I think Boswell can get out and push it. But I do think Merez is a guy who could rim run, and you could get some transition stuff out of him. I don't think Tommy's overly fast. So I think you don't have great speed. You don't have a guy like Terrence Shannon who can just turn it, and they don't really have anybody like that. But I would like to see him get out in more transition and push it, even if it's just to create a secondary option. Maybe it's a pull-up 3 coming in on the break, or maybe it's a ball reversal, and then you're able to get a seal inside or get Merez running the rim. And overall, and I asked Brad about this post game about Merez's impact defensively, and I wrote the article. He is the most impactful defensive player that they have, and it's not even close. It is insane the impact he makes on both on the defensive end of the floor. He because of his physicality, because of his ability to move his feet, because of his rebounding, because all that stuff, he's just so impactful. But you saw the problem tonight. They don't have a third big guy. They don't have a third guy. So they almost ended up, can you imagine at the end of that game, both those guys had fouled out? Who guards the opposing post? What do you do?
It's Booth time.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking, Brad. I was thinking the same thing. I'm thinking it's got to be Booth because Venus has 4 fouls. They're going to go small, but you can't do because Missouri's just really going to attack them and shoot over the top of them. So it would have to been Booth.
Pull the red shirt off Jaxtus. I don't know. I don't know what the answer would have been, but you saw that. And I think that's why you're going to see it's hard for them to play them. And they wanted to play them because they like that matchup with Merez tonight. Playing more, but at the end of the day, when they get in foul trouble, it makes it really hard to do that. They get stuck.
Yeah, and I also think this is, and I know that I will be the object of ridicule when I say this, but I really believe that they do miss Ty Rodgers because he is another asset that can play both inside and out and is willing to do whatever the heck he's asked to do on defense. And I do think maybe it's not the minutes he would have been happy with, but certainly I think there are moments in a game where I'm sure Coach Underwood, if he might not publicly admit it, but he'd like to have that option to be there as well.
No question. That's another depth piece. And you got Trey White foul out tonight at the end of the game, and they used Jake Davis on defense. I think you saw a couple guys. You got a couple guys. I think Will Riley's struggling mentally with his shot. He started hesitating. I think Ben Humrickhouse. I thought he made some really good defensive plays. Even the first bunch, they were scoring on him, but he was doing a good job of positioning, making guys score over him. At the end, he was terrible. You could see he was just lost, and they just were getting easy baskets against him again. And so this is where they have to find a guy, and Ty Rodgers would be perfect. And I know he didn't want the role, but man, would he be huge, especially when you have foul trouble and things like that. And this sounds terrible, but Missouri just ran ISOs. It was just find the right matchup and just attack it. That's what they did all night long.
Yeah.
And they set up a ball screen to get the matchup and go get it, and it didn't matter who it was. And whether it was they attacked, if it was Ivasic, if it was Brickhouse, if it was Jake Davis, it didn't matter. They were going to run at them and attack those guys. They had Freeman attacking against KJ. That's what they did. And that's just, it's just an effective way to, score. But if they're calling fouls like they did too. But there were a lot of games. If this game was called like a Big Ten game is sometimes, there would have been a lot of games where none of these would have been fouls. And nobody would have gone to the line. And that game would have been 54-53, and we'd have wondered why it's no fun to watch.
And this wasn't much better when you go the far extreme the other way.
I think it's a little too much.
Yeah. It was really interesting. Did Underwood see Morez get thrown to the ground? Because I would have thought for sure they would have went to the tape and looked at that play.
Did you see?
I don't think you did. I did. I saw your replay. I think you sent it to me, didn't you? On your phone. I saw it live, but then I watched the replay. It was like, wow, how did they miss that? But then I'm wondering, look at all they did miss. It was pretty poorly officiated game overall. But yeah, I think so. By the way, I got to say, post game, one of my favorite things, and I asked the question about Will Riley and how Brad helps him through this process. And I think you see right there why guys are like playing for Brad is because he supports them. Riley's 2 for his last 23 from 3, but he doesn't tell him not to shoot anymore. He says, hey, if I ever see you hesitate again, I'm going to be disappointed in you because I know you can shoot. Go home, have your Christmas, and then when you come back, everything's going in. And so I think it's awesome. And I get it. If you have guys who can't shoot, he would not tell Merez to keep checking threes or Ty Rodgers to keep shooting threes. Will Riley can make it because he's done it. And so that's where everybody goes through slumps, but just a young kid like that, 18 years old, it's a tough thing. And he handles it really well. And I think that's why guys like playing for him. And that's why he's recruiting so well. And in addition to the fact that giving them the freedom to make plays, I think that's huge.
Right. Sorry, Mike, real quick, from a recruiting standpoint, I can't tell you how many recruits and parents that have said that to me. It's obviously, we talked about it a little bit before you came on air. Colin Boswell's not shooting the ball well from 3 either, but they don't tell him not to shoot. There was one, and the thing I like about your comment with Coach Underwood, because that's what I did as a shooter. I would love playing for a guy like that. When I watched the coach's reaction, They don't show any emotion. They don't throw their hands up. I don't see them whispering to any of the coaches. You have to show that kind of positive feedback because as a shooter, when you get going, they're going to go in. I mean, they really are. And I will say this. I will give Brad credit. He didn't just have a bunch of threes. The one he hit was huge tonight, though. It really was. And but at least he knows. And once a couple start to go down and you get the confidence, the rim's going to become big again. But they do, other than the Beasage and the step back three from KJ, somebody else has to start knocking down threes because otherwise teams are going to start zoning them, which is another recipe what you saw tonight.
Yeah, the other thing I think was interesting, Brad, is it seems like Coach Underwood, since the early part of last year, has really resolved to keep his cool. And this was a horribly officiated game. And how we couldn't always see him on the bench, but there were no cameras going towards him. He seemed to be able to handle this degree of uncertainty much better than Coach Gates did.
Yeah, he did. And he was still, I will say, he was definitely working the officials and he made his points. And I do think that Gates' technical helped Missouri, gave them energy, and also the next two calls went directly for them. But at the same time, you also gave up 2 points. So is that it depends. You got to get it early in the game, earlier in the game like he did. After that point, you don't want to get a technical in the last like 4 to 6 minutes because you don't have time to make up for those points. But I thought there was a stretch there near the end of the first half or beginning second half maybe when Illinois there was a couple drives and they just got hammered and no call. And I'll be honest with you, there was a play at the end right after they called that foul on, I think it was on, might have been the foul on Trey White or you call it a ticky-tack foul. It was one on Merez. Boswell goes in the lane and literally a guy just body checks him. Everybody saw it. It was clear. It wasn't like it was hidden or anything like that. They just didn't call it. It was just a play on. And it's, okay, if that's a play on, then we got to have some play ons on the other end too. And those are the kind of things that just, you wonder what's the official. I think sometimes they don't know who's supposed to call it, so they don't call it. And then it's too late to call it. And that's where you get into trouble.
I tell you, off ball, Cruz made a living. I don't know if you watched, just because he was on the weak side and Illinois had the ball a lot on the left side of the court. There was a period of time where you could see him. And man, you talk about he undercut 2 or 3 guys. That guy's a menace. And then to get the benefit of the doubt where he gets 4 free throws at the end of the game, I found that to be like just amazing that he didn't get called for much at all. And again, when Illinois would go up for rebounds on the weak side down on that right block, he would just hit them as soon as they get up in the air. And nothing. So I thought that the referees lost control of this game. And thankfully, nobody got hurt.
So the question becomes, why wouldn't you do it if you're not going to get called?
I would. That's why I recognize behavior because I did it myself.
To Sturdy's credit, when that play happened with Boswell, I'm assuming we're talking about the same play in the second half. If I'm coaching and I'm on that bench and they're calling fouls like that, I'm telling my team, get to the basket. They're going to call fouls. And they didn't call on Boswell. Granted, he missed it and he got it back, and I think he got to try to put it back in and shot a free throw off of it. But that's what we were talking about, Brad, before you came on the air, is how do you adjust to that? Because they were calling fouls every time down the court on the other end, and then you attack the basket and you don't get it. And they can say that we're crying, but you clearly show it. Here's why that's a tough call. That same foul, Merez got the second or third foul for jumping up in the air like that. But on the other end, late in the second half, Kyler tried attacking the basket like Brad just mentioned, and they didn't call it. I don't care if it's the same official or not. They have to, as an officiating crew, if it was me, decide how you're going to officiate the game. You know these teams because they watch them, they officiate them and they watch them. I was afraid when I saw Mr. Heines out at the beginning because last time in Champaign, he was brutal. So I knew they were going to be in trouble with that situation to begin with. But they have to somehow, like you mentioned earlier, Mike, be better. Don't let guys referee and then go back to be lawyers on their free time. Because there's guys I know in the Quad Cities here that referee Big Ten softball, baseball games, and then they go to work the next, and then you're flying out again. That's an awful lot if you're not 25, 30 years old.
You're exactly right, Ked. And the other thing is, these guys do all these games. How much time do you think they spend breaking down the film of the game they just officiated? None, because they don't have time. They all have other jobs, and then they're going to fly from here and probably do a game in Georgia tomorrow or something. This is the problem here. It's become these guys, it's a money grab for them instead of making things better. And I think that's a disappointing thing. But I want to go back a couple of points I'd love to make. And Illinois, 22 of 23 from the line. What a fantastic job making free throws. Kylan Boswell and Kasparis were, I think, combined, what were they, 20 out of 21 or something like that. Just a fantastic job making free throws. I think that was huge in this win. The other thing probably the biggest issue that I think for Illinois right now, 19 of 20, sorry. But the biggest thing for Illinois right now, they have to turn the ball over a lot less. And just the thing is, you're going to have turnovers that are forced. You're going to get trapped. You're going to have a steal, whatever. But the reality is they turn it over just for no apparent reason because they just take it and flip it. Just flip the ball, take it out of bounds, flip it in bounds. They don't expect pressure or they don't expect the team to steal it. And perhaps that's because the way they play in practice is they don't really go for steals, right? And they don't play that way. When you get a team like this and you just make a flip pass, you're stuck. And I think that was that's what kept Missouri, that and the getting to the line was what kept Missouri in this game. And Illinois needs to do a better job of taking care of the basketball if they're going to make a run deep in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Any other closing thoughts, Brad? Did you come out of this and get ready to head back to Central Illinois?
I think Missouri is such an improved team. They are much better than they were a year ago. So that's why this game was competitive. But the one thing I'll say, I think Illinois is probably the best team in the Big Ten. I really do. And I don't know, I haven't, after I've watched all the teams play at least a couple games now, I think they're probably the best team. Again, they're 8-3, and we would be talking about them as a top 10 team with just a play here or there in those two games. And it doesn't make them a better team because they didn't beat Northwestern or Tennessee. And I felt those were games where they definitely had the opportunity to win. They probably controlled the game for most of the night and didn't come out on top. So I think that they're probably the best team in the Big Ten at this point, I think. And they're a team that has a ton of potential to get better. They're not a finished product. Brad said this non-conference schedule was good for them because they learned how to play. They learned how to play against good competition. And it makes them ready. And they're going to get a little tune-up there against Chicago State, and then the Big Ten starts. And I think a 15-win season in the Big Ten, a 14-5 finish here, or 14-4, whatever it is, finish is possible. Maybe 13-5 the rest of the way and get 14 wins. But I think that sets them up well heading into March. And so this is a team that is just going to keep getting better. They're young. I know that we don't want to make excuses for youth at this point in the season, but you saw them they were better today. They handled adversity much better in a crazy environment than they had in the last two games when they were down to the wire.
Totally agree. Ked, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, my take is this. The one thing I started the show with this, and I'm going to close with it. I want to see them improve, like you said, like Brad just mentioned, get better. I thought they were careless, and the Beast is throwing passes away, and there's times when KJ does it. They're just young in this youth, and there's nothing you can do about it. But like Brad just mentioned, at some point in time, we have to stop using that excuse. They have to fine-tune things, if you will. As far as the team is concerned, it's not a finished product because I really do. I'm praying. This is for my holiday gift. They learn how to close games out. They close this one out. As far as the Big Ten, I think they're second or third. I think Oregon is a step above everybody else. They're bigger. They're athletic. They're more consistent. I would pick Illinois second or third. A team that scares me that I'm not a fan of is Maryland. I'm not saying they're in the top 2 or 3 teams, but Oregon is dangerous. Illinois, if they can get their guys like Will Riley to make shots, or they can get Ben Humrickhouse making shots, the game is going to change. That's my thought with this team, and it's always good to beat Missouri all the time, and you never want to apologize, but I just want to see growth. If the people out there who are critical of KJ, I want to let you know that when they lost to Tennessee last Saturday, I got reports. I think somebody tweeted it at 2:00 in the morning. They killed the gym working on his game. So for the fans out there who think that the game doesn't matter to the players, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, and Brad, thanks for finding a way to get to talk to us here at the end of this. Folks, we will have...
by the way, they're cleaning up they're taking the court up right around me here. So If I end up getting put away with the court, you'll know I won't be around anymore.
So we'll know.
So.
Brad and I will be doing a little bit of a heat check and Hail Mary thing tomorrow night. So be waiting for that podcast to come out. We got a lot of stuff coming this week, folks, because like I said, a heat checks and Hail Marys will come out tomorrow. Then we will do Eye on the Illini will come out Thursday. We have a preview of South Carolina for what the Fighting Illini are going to face in the Citrus Bowl. This was a little scarier than what I wanted to hear, but this is basically Illinois is looking at a clone of themselves, a team that wants to move up to the top tier of the SEC, and Illinois wants to move up to the top tier of the Big Ten. And this is a team that people didn't expect to be that good this year, and they were, just like the Illini. This should be one heck of a bowl game, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And, of course, we will have our Sports Spectacular come out at the end of the week so that while you're in between holidays, you can get a couple hours of listening to the Illini guys there as well. So there's a lot going to be coming out this week. We're excited about that. I'm also going to have on a boxing writer on the Heat Checks who will talk a little bit about the Usyk Tyson Fury fight that happened yesterday as well. So we'll even give you a few non-Illini things just for a little bit of fun. And of course, with the CFP, there is a lot to discuss, especially the SEC people who spent a whole day ripping on Indiana, only to find out that they were the team that kept it the closest of all the teams in the first round losses. So I thought that was hilarious. It's been a lot of fun trolling SEC teams. And as of yet, I think the only place we can find Lane Kiffin is on milk cartons because he stopped tweeting incessantly.
Did you see the Illinois basketball tweet after this game? Illinois basketball tweet after this game?
Yes, I did.
More.
It just means more
stuff.
Yes.
It throws a little more shade. I love it.
I was putting that all over X last night because I'm a 2-year-old. But anyway, that's just how I roll. With that, let me make sure there's no comments that anybody made that we might want to throw that up. Oh, Brad, people thought you were calling from a gun range.
I hope not, although I'm not sure some of these guys aren't packing, but they they got drills going and they're moving things. So that's the noise you're hearing. So it's a good time.
Yeah. And then the one other thing that somebody brought up was, and we don't have an answer for this, DC Hunter 100. Why wasn't there a flagrant on the Mizzou player for throwing Morez to the ground? None of us knows. But we have no clue.
We do not know. We don't know.
Usually that's a foul, though. Good. I
can't believe we all missed that.
Yeah. To me, though, seriously, I just kept thinking that somebody was going to tell them they need to look at that play on rewind, and never happened. They spent plenty of time trying to figure out if Morez got the shot in okay, and they certainly didn't care that Kasparis got dogpiled as he shot the ball that Morez put back up.
Yeah,
they don't call, and you can't bother to look at Morez being thrown down by Tubby, the center. So I don't know. It's crazy.
You know what? Hey, before we close, I do want to make one more quick comment. I've got a lot of videos, and I'm sure that both of you will go back and watch this. I think there was a lot of trash talking going to KJ. That's why I thought you saw the step over his head. You saw the lack of foul when the game was over. I don't know. I know he barks a little bit too, but I thought Missouri paid a lot of extra special attention to him tonight. So hopefully the coaches see something on film and they can report something. I thought he got mishandled tonight by the officials. I really do think that.
Don't you think some of that's because of you keep seeing his draft stock being a top 5-6 pick in the draft, and now everybody's coming at him?
Because they want to prove.
But as they say, he hit the game winner. So when you come at the king, you best not miss.
That's right, baby.
I mean, and look, folks, we just try to talk about what we see. This is a darn good Illinois team. We're all extremely satisfied that they're ahead of where we thought they would be, maybe because they've really had a tough schedule and they're growing. And none of us saw the defense being this good. But, Jacusione's 21 points on 11 shots, 2 boards, 4 assists. And really the only thing he has to work on right now is a little bit, maybe a shot selection. But even then, he just doesn't take a lot of dumb shots. I didn't like one of his threes. Again, he makes them at such a clip. You got to give him the shot. But the bottom line is if he just values the ball a little bit more and cuts 1 or 2 turnovers off, What are you going to throw rocks at? He may be the best freshman Illinois ever had.
Yeah, what's the 6 straight 20-point games?
Something like that, 6 or 7, yeah.
It's insane. The other part about this is, one thing I'll say, he did have an assist. They totally butchered the stats on one play. He had the assist. They gave it to Boswell. So they actually switched when it was on Gibbs Lahorn's layup on the break. Boswell actually pitched it ahead to KJ, and KJ hit Gibbs Lahorn, and then Gibbs Lahorn made the layup. So they did miss that on the stats. But we were sitting there watching it like, wait, what? How did they give that to him? So, but I do think a lot of it is, I think a lot of his turnovers are early in games. It seems like maybe not against Tennessee, but tonight it was a few early turnovers or like against pressure. But once it comes down to the end of the game, he seems to make that adjustment and grow and learn from it. And I think that's now you want him to maybe. I think as he sees more defenses and sees more options, I think he's going to get better at that. But guys make plays. We talk about the NBA. James Harden was throwing up triple doubles and leading the league in turnovers too. So this is the way of basketball. You make plays, but you also are going to have turnovers when you're trying to make plays. But overall, yeah, I can't fault him much. They do make a few lackadaisical ones though. If you clean those up, you're going to have a couple 3, but you can't have 5, 6, 7. I think that's the difference.
Yep. Totally agree. So with that, folks, we are going to close this down. Thank you so much for everybody putting your messages in and listening to us. One last comment that came in. No, one of us will not be the punter for the bowl game. I think that's.
I can punt once, and then I'd have to get a hip replacement probably. So
I would be like Joe Theismann. Remember in '85 when he was yelling at the punter and then went out there against the Bears and punted that one that went -3 yards? That would be me.
Yeah, I would have been 3 yards, and I already have a hip replacement, Brad. So that both of you.
So, yes, so we will
I was
pass
trying to be
on
like
that.
Ked.
So with that, folks, we've got a lot of stuff coming this week, and please go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have more members of the IlliniGuys community. We like to call it a community because it's a place where a lot of people get together and have a lot of fun, and we enjoy subscribers and get to know everybody, and we enjoy that very much. But until next time we see you, folks, go Illini. Thank you so much for listening or watching this episode of Eye on the Illini. If you enjoy what you saw, well, we have a brand that we try to keep consistent with, and that is having fun with sports, never talking politics, and not going after kids or coaches and getting all the vitriol that we see out there. We assume that if a coach knows that something was going to happen, he wouldn't have called that play. And certainly if a player knew he was going to airball the shot or miss the field goal, they would have done something differently. So we just make that assumption, and hopefully we keep it lighthearted. We give you good analysis, and you're not mad when you turn it off. Although we can get whiny when it comes to poor officiating. It's just everybody's got their weak spot. But if you enjoy this, you can subscribe to IlliniGuys.com for just 27 cents a day. And that will get you access to all of our articles without a paywall blocking you. You'll get some of those articles ahead of time. And the most important thing is you get access to our message boards. That's where we can talk about things that we can't publish because you might only have one source, or maybe someone is not willing to go on the record. Well, we can get rumors, innuendos, etc. on the message board. And so you get an insight into things before they're happening, or you get an insight into what's going on behind the scenes. Things that, like I said, we can't necessarily make into full-on articles. But the other part that makes it different is it's a two-way relationship at IlliniGuys. You can ask Brad, Ked, Matt, Larry, or myself a question. If you get lucky, even our silent partners like Chris and maybe even Carl. But you get that opportunity to go back and forth and ask for clarification. We have a lot of people on the board that we consider friends, and that's because we interact back and forth with them. We think it's a big part of being an IlliniGuys subscriber, and certainly if you want that extra insight, that is why the 27 cents a day, $99 a year is worth your time. We also have our radio show, the IlliniGuys Sports Spectacular, a 2-hour Illini-centric radio show that is on over 20 stations across the state of Illinois. You can also find us at your favorite podcast distributors. You can go out there and find the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular. You can subscribe to it. It comes out once a week, and you can make sure you never miss an episode. We also do a Big Ten show, Big Sports Radio, which is Big Ten centric, and it focuses on the big sporting events of the week, with the Big Ten taking first place in our attention. You can find that anywhere. You can subscribe to that as well. And we have our Eye on the Illini that you're watching right now. Make sure you subscribe to this. You can also go to IlliniGuys.com on YouTube. That is our channel, and you can subscribe to that there as well. That way you don't miss it if you have stomach enough to do the video versions of us. And finally, we have my heat checks and Hail Marys, where I go through some things that I see during the week, and we just talk about tidbits here and there. And occasionally, I'll have guests on that show as well. Brad likes to come on and talk sports. We don't always agree on things, but we have a good debate and we have fun with it. And that's what we're trying to do here at Illini Guys. If you like a brand that people don't take themselves too seriously, have a good time, this is the place for you. If you want some place where everybody knows everything and we're angry about everything, we're not the right place. Don't worry about tuning us in. But you have that opportunity. Please follow us on all of our stuff. And most importantly, if you enjoy what you are in listening or watching, please share it on your social media. That's the only way that we can get the word out there. We aren't a big corporation that can fund ads across Twitter or across the social media landscape. So people who enjoy what we do, sharing that with their friends and their other sports fan friends is key to us. And we appreciate everyone who does that. Until next time, folks, go Illini.